Jim Harbaugh. Man, is there anybody that can continue to do the things he does and just, boy, he just keeps getting away with things, it seems like.
Yeah, well, I mean, hold on a second. I didn't delve far into this, but obviously, I mean, he's just, if you've ever seen Jim talk, obviously he's just a different cat. He just is. He's a different kind of guy. But like I guess it seems like this is a thing that could have easily gone away, especially with the way things are going. That as far as payment of players and everything like that, like this is a thing that would have been a small infraction if they were just straight about it. But it seems like the NCAA is bothered by the fact that he was sort of running around and not willing to just take whatever penalty it was. And so it ends up being false statements. And so you have this thing's broken down. So apparently, I'm reading from Yahoo Sports. I hadn't been following this too closely.
Well, he was hit with a level 1 for not cooperating with the NCAA.
Right. And so there's now been a breakdown so they'd come to a 4-game suspension, and the COI had to approve that, and now that deal is off. So they'll move further in the NCAA disciplinary system, almost certainly into off season sometime in 2024. Harbaugh is now expected. Okay, so he's going to coach every game this year, but
that's most likely that's going to happen. That this is going to be pushed to next season, which that in and of itself is odd. Who the hell says he's going to be here next season?
I mean, sure, that's altogether possible. Nobody knows with anything, but obviously he's in good shape. Michigan's winning, and he's put himself back. Obviously, there was a spot there where it was like, is Harbaugh going to make it? Are they going to have to make a choice here? And Michigan's put himself back in a position where he is safe. That right now he coaches a top 4 program. It's really Georgia, Ohio, Georgia and Alabama in the SEC, and Ohio State and Michigan in the Big Ten, and then everybody else, and you pop up here and there. But like in terms of who's in good shape in college sports, it's really, those 4 programs are kind of head and shoulders, over everybody else. Certainly from time to time, from year to year, somebody can be up there. LSU, obviously it looks like a really good program this year. Penn State's in that discussion. But Texas, Oklahoma, et cetera. But right now, those are top 4 programs, and Harbaugh has brought them back up there. So they're winning at that level again. So I don't know that he needs to jump ship and go someplace else. I mean, as much as I get guys like this get, sort of wanderlust and whatever, I still think college is better for Harbaugh than the NFL is. I mean, I think, in the NFL, they definitely get exhausted by his shtick. And I think, when you're running guys in 4 or 5 years in college football, like they don't get tired of the Harbaugh thing. So I think this is a better place for him to stay, even if he does get a suspension. But it's pretty wild that this thing could have been really small. It could have been really small. And he's just kind of refused to cooperate with it. Almost, it seems like out of spite. I mean, like I can't say that for certain, but it's almost just like, this is dumb that you're even asking me about this, so I'm not going to tell you. And it's just like, if you just would have told him to be over, like it'd have been nothing. And it's just like, it would have been a small deal, but Zoom calls and inopportune times or whatever, you got in a little bit of trouble, but not a lot. And so it's like, all right, dude, what are you doing? Like, what's the case you're trying to make here?
He's being Jim Harbaugh. Big Ten basketball recruiting, Rivals rankings as of right now, a little surprise. First of all, not ranked at all: Washington, Oregon, USC, Maryland, and Indiana.
They haven't landed anybody yet, right?
Nope. Yes, they got nada.
That's what it comes down to.
But the shocker is Rutgers is at the top, but they're also currently ranked number 2 in the country. Which that's a little surprising.
What do we got here?
They've got a 5-star, a 4-star, and a 3-star.
Well, that'll do it.
Plus it's
Oh,
absolutely.
And they're still in. They still got a shot at Dylan Harper. A really good shot at Dylan Harper.
That's what I was wondering. Had he committed yet? If he goes to Rutgers, man, they could move to the number 1
sure. No, they're gonna
class in the country.
Yeah, I mean,
Rutgers could have the number one basketball recruiting class in the United States. What the hell's going on with the world?
I mean, Pikel's done a heck of a job, man.
He
really has. I mean, that team has been like, there was just, the Athletic did all kind of, realignment stuff, obviously that just happened to be, fortuitous because there was more realignment, but kind of looks back at, everybody who got picked up over the years and sort of the payoff from it. And on one level, especially on a football level, Rutgers hasn't really brought a lot. What Rutgers has brought is the New York City TV market, and whether people were actually watching Rutgers or not, it doesn't matter, because like what happened was those became, local subscriptions. So the Big Ten Network got more money and the Big Ten got more money. And regardless of whether Rutgers is actually good at sports or not, doesn't matter. But Rutgers basketball is way better, I think, than people would have expected.
They're solid. They're solid.
They have been a tough out for years. Pikel's been terrific. You do not want to play at the rack. I mean, it is a tough, miserable experience. They make it brutal on you, and they have. And they're obviously not one of the best teams in the league. They just missed getting in the tournament this year, but they are a brutal out. They are a team that nobody wants to play because they make it nasty on you. And so, Pikel's put himself in good position. Obviously, helps that a guy like Harper, has ties. His older brother played there. And puts them at least in position. And I think there are other guys that have probably committed in part because they can see Dylan going there and, them getting to be a part of something, different, new and special at Rutgers, that's not normal. So, yeah, I mean, they got to, they could certainly get him. I mean, like I haven't been following basketball recruiting nearly as closely, but I really should, because these are obviously the guys that are going to be first round picks next year. And so if they get Dylan, man, that is a game changer.
Oh, it absolutely. I don't know where that would put them in, because that would be a year later in Big Ten play, because we're talking about freshmen still, but the expectations are going to continue to rise for Rutgers. And there's been a lot of talk about Rutgers. We saw a piece not too long ago that Rutgers was the worst expansion move in the history of expansion.
Yeah, that's the same one I read. Probably the same one I read in Athletic.
And so I'm like, yeah, I get it, but I don't know. It wasn't for them. It doesn't do anything for the Big Ten.
Again, it does. It
the
does
New York market
for the Big Ten. It's
New York market.
We're judging it on what does this athletic program bring from a wins and loss, championships, whatever perspective. Did it bring that much? No. But what it did was brought the New York City TV market, and that has a lot to do with why the Big Ten is where it is. It didn't matter at all if they were good at any sports. All that mattered, and it doesn't even matter that people in New York, people in New York City, does people in New York City really care about Rutgers? Is Rutgers, where is Rutgers on the list of things people care about?
If they ever get good,
that doesn't matter either.
But if they ever get good, they will, I think, because there's probably a ton of Rutgers grads working over in New York.
Yeah, it's New Jersey's team. It is New Jersey's team.
Piscataway.
Yeah, so I mean, I've got a good friend in New Jersey, Mike Barber, covers Virginia for the Richmond Times-Dispatch. He's a Rutgers guy, so I'm like, there's a bunch of Rutgers guys in the media. A bunch of guys from New Jersey go across the river, playing, to live in the city and everything like that. Or they stay in Hoboken and they take the train in. All things that happen. So it's not like you can't find any Rutgers fans in New York. You actually absolutely can. But it doesn't matter. That was the whole thing, and that's how it was explained at the time. Because at the time you're like, what? It's Rutgers to New York. It's not the top 5 on anybody's mind. But the issue is there are graduates from every school in the country in New York. All that mattered is that the Big Ten Network had to be classified as local, having local interest in New York, and that changes the subscription fees. All you had to do was have a school in the market, and New York, all the New York subscription fees were, you could put the Big Ten Network on everybody's cable once that's in market. That's what mattered. That's the whole thing. It didn't matter if they're good at one single sport. All that mattered is you got in-market fees for the Big Ten network in New York City. So all the cable subscribers, obviously the number of cable subscribers went down, but all those cable subscribers you got the Big Ten network fee, in-market fee money for all of that. And that was an absolute game changer. You're talking about millions and millions and millions of people in that market. That's all they had to do. All they had to do was be an entry into that market, and that's
because those people will be watching Ohio State, USC, or UCLA, Michigan, or Penn State, Washington, whatever it is.
Yep,
those are going to be some great games.
New York. There's plenty of Michigan grads in New York. There's plenty of Ohio State grads in New York. There's plenty of Maryland grads in New York. Like, all that mattered is you had to get that in here and be something that was in market, and you drew a ton of cash out of it. And it's just like that was the only thing that mattered about that edition. And so, like, as you could draw it up for whatever you want to talk about, whatever sports, it mattered because they, they got you in that market. That's all they had to do. It's like they could not even play sports.
Yeah, I agree, but
they just had to be there. That's all,
And who's to say that they can't rise now in football? Again, yeah, they have the same, if not. Probably the same challenges that Indiana does in football. But Indiana, I've said it, I don't care. They're going to have to commit to making football mediocre at a minimum. You've got to make a commitment to make them mediocre at a minimum. Yeah, and I don't mean that to disparage anybody on the current staff or anything like that. It's not what I'm saying. Make sure that they have the resources, everything that they possibly need. And that includes NIL for football. I don't know what the numbers are for IU football for NIL. I know
nobody does.
I know basketball is not hurting. Ain't hurting at all. So, and I get it. You're feeding the monkey, but you got to feed the train, baby. And football is the engine that leads the train. So
there are so many metaphors you got mixed up in there, Jim, that I don't even know. But I'm just going to go straight to your point. No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I thought.
Did you ever see the movie The Dude? I mean, The Big Lebowski.
Yes. Okay. That's
When he gets thrown in the limo, there's a lot of facets, a lot of play. I think he just said all of the things. I think he just said.
Yeah, I know what song you're talking about, and it's escaping me right now. But I mean, back to your point. I mean, I think obviously, Tom Allen is starting to get vocal about that. I thought it was interesting that when the news of the new football only weight room dropped, a Crimson Core, I think it was Luke Norton, I think, running that account, just pointed out that Mike Loxley at Maryland said they really don't care about these kids really don't care about facilities anymore.
I was gonna say, who cares about a stinking weight room?
Yeah, that's
what difference does that make?
I thought that was an interesting thing. I mean, like, people do. I mean, it's definitely been sort of a thing that I've only followed from a distance. And so I got in a little bit of a conversation about it, with this weight room, because I'm like, okay, like, there's nothing wrong with the weight room they have. I mean, I think it just became.
Well, it's because it feeds all the other sports, which big stinking deal. You're telling me that that weight room, it goes from one side of the stadium to the other in the north end zone. It goes from one end to the other.
It's
plenty of room. You can have a meeting on one side while somebody worked out.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I guess there was some. I know it was like a, sort of chat room issue. That IU football fans were like, this is playing bad for us in recruiting and stuff like that. And I'm like, I feel like that's not a hard sell. Like, it's like okay, like, yeah, like, you live with the volleyball team. Oh my God, man, that's the worst thing ever. I got,
They're probably, I'd say they probably enjoy that a lot more than lifting with the offensive linemen.
Right. Everybody, nobody needs to know what I'm, like, I think everybody knows what I'm saying there. ultimately. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world that you interact with girls. Oh my God, the worst thing that would ever happen to a 20-year-old kid. Anyway, point of the matter, like, it's that are also athletes and everything like that. And not only that, like interacting with other sports, you get to know people that aren't like you. It's not the worst thing that ever happened. You get to know cross-country kids and baseball players and soccer players. And, man, like, it's not the worst thing in the world for you to interact with people that play other sports than you, and maybe you're from different backgrounds and stuff. But I get the idea. It's like, well, you got to work and you got to this, and it's like you got so many people that you're running an 85 scholarship guys and stuff. Like, okay, but one way or another, the point that was made by this was, like that Michael Oxley was saying, it's like these kids don't care anymore because like the thing he said was like, man, he's like, they would get changed in a trash can for 25 grand. I'm like, I'd get changed in a trash can for 25 grand. Like, I get it. And then, so it's like, they're basically saying like, this arms race has to change because, these kids are asking you, I mean, we're talking about direct payments, now at this point. I mean, like, you don't, like, because college sports puts way more into its facilities than pros do, not way more, but like there is more, as far as like, like you want to have a practice facility in the pros and stuff like that. Like, but it's like they're at least it's close to it, because like you've been for all these years, there's been this arms race, and I think they feel like they've got to do it forever. And but it's like, okay, no, yeah, like any other person would rather be paid directly than have the nicest facilities. Like, if so it's like, but the issue is that you've got to move that money because you can't control it. Like, that's the rules. You're not allowed to be the people that control it. You're basically asking somebody to donate the money to somebody else. If somebody's coming to you with like a couple $1 million, I want you to build this facility, you're gonna be like, hey, you should actually call this other person. And so to stay on the right track of the NCAA or whatever it is, you have to ask them to pay somebody else. So